The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description.
Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to the Command Post Live. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I, of course, am your Commander-in-Chief, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. It's been a while. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Feels good to be back where I rightfully belong. I've missed y'all. Did you miss me? I hope y'all missed me because I missed y'all. Anyway, we are back like cook crack. Why does this look weird to me? Give me 1 second. Let me look at this screen. Why is it showing up backwards on my monitor? Let me see if I can adjust this. Camera. Yeah, don't mirror my camera. Thank you. All right. There we go. This stream is brought to you by PrizePicks, America's #1 sports pick app. We'll talk more about that a little bit later on in the show. However, I wanted to talk to y'all because while I was on vacay, one of the things that I was keeping tabs on, obviously, was the Brandon Aiyuk situation. I was like, I hope this doesn't break while I'm not here, right? It would be the worst possible time for that to transpire, but it didn't. And I've been kind of keeping tabs on everything that's been going on with it, whether or not he's going to be released soon. How long is this going to drag out? You know, obviously the league meetings just happened in Phoenix, so there was a lot of conversation there. I saw a lot of stuff that sort of bothered me with this because I feel like we're being lied to in this situation. I really do. I feel like we're not getting honesty from anyone on this whole ordeal, and that's problematic for me. So I'm going to talk to you about what options the Commanders have, because the #2 wide receiver position is a big effing deal for this football team. We saw what happened last year when Terry McLaurin wasn't healthy and what that did to this offense. And while they've added pieces that may be able to help circumvent that a little bit better if something like that were to occur this year, you still can't put yourself in that position. The receiver group that they've assembled is not strong enough to withstand a Terry McLaurin injury of any sort right now. And thus that wide receiver 2 position is more important than ever before, because year 3 of Jaden Daniels is massive. We're going to talk about that later on today. I'm going to be doing 3 videos today. I'm back like cook crack in a major way. And so you're going to see my face a ton today. We're going to make up for some lost time, talk about a number of different topics, including what this team and all the teams in the NFC East look like going into the draft. We're going to talk about some NFC East storylines later on in the day. We're going to also talk about that receiver position. I left you some videos when I was gone. We're going to talk about my wide receiver rankings later on tonight. And so you're going to see quite a bit of me today, but I want to start the day talking about the receiver position as a whole right now, because to me, the Commanders have to do something about wide receiver 2. They do not currently have wide receiver 2 on the roster right now, and they've got 4 options as to how they can acquire wide receiver 2. The most abundantly clear option is the one we've been talking about, what feels like for months, right? And when I say months, I'm talking about going all the way back to last year, December, when we figured, okay, Brandon Aiyuk is going to get released. He's going to end up being a Commander, and it's probably going to happen sometime shortly after the season's done, definitely by the time the new league year rolls around. And again, the theme of today's video is we've been lied to. We've been lied to throughout this process, and I think if you're a Commanders fan, you have to start being real with yourself about this Brandon Aiyuk situation, because it may not turn out the way that you and I think, right? So feels like we've been talking about Brandon Aiyuk landing here as the #2 wide receiver. And for a lot of you, and a lot of you have said this to me, I'm not comfortable with Brandon Aiyuk as the number 2 receiver. Even if he were here right now, I still feel like we should do something because this guy's coming off of an injury. He hasn't played football since October of 2024. What the hell are we getting? You're not wrong for feeling that way. But at least you would have a guy that is a 1,000-yard receiver in this league before. And worst case scenario, if he's not the Brandon Aiyuk he was prior to the injury, it's still better than anything else we have on this roster as it's currently constructed at the receiver position, not named Terry McLaurin. That said, he would be the obvious number 2 option should he be released by the 49ers. You have option 2. Trade for a receiver like Brian Thomas Jr. It's one that has been brought up by many fans. I highly doubt that that takes place. There are a lot of factors that I believe go into that decision-making process that won't allow that to take place. One, Jacksonville has to be open to trading their young stud wide receiver going into his 3rd season. While year 2 was a disappointment for him, and they saw the emergence of guys like Parker Washington. They traded for Jacoby Myers. They're going to have Travis Hunter featured more on the offensive side as a wide receiver in his 2nd season, which means where does Brian Thomas Jr. fit into all of that equation? Again, great question, right? Lots of questions there, but they don't have to do anything, right? Unless they get an offer that knocks their socks off. We're not in a position to give them that offer because I can tell you right now, if we offered Jacksonville the number 7 overall pick, Brian Thomas Jr. is a Commander right now. That's all it would take is a 7th overall pick, and they would trade him to us. Are you willing to give up the 7th pick in the draft for Brian Thomas Jr.? I don't think you are. A lot of the trades I've been seeing, give them 2 3s, right? Give them a 3 this year and a 3 next year, or a 3 this year and a 2 next year. Give them a 2 next year, and they don't want any of that shit. They spent a 1st-round pick on Brian Thomas Jr. They want their 1st-round pick back. They're not giving him away. This is not a yard sale, okay? So many fans love to throw out whatever they are willing to part ways with when it comes to a trade instead of what it's actually going to take to get a player from a team, especially if you've invested what Jacksonville invested in this player. And, oh, by the way, he had a historic rookie season, by the way. Like, the production in his rookie season was astronomical. It was insane. I liken it to what Jaden Daniels did in his rookie season. Brian Thomas Jr. did that same thing for a receiver in Jacksonville with quarterback play that was up and down, that wasn't just Trevor Lawrence. It was a bunch of who's who at the quarterback position. The guy is super talented. They're not giving him away. You'd have to give up a 1st-round pick. That's option 2. Highly unlikely. Of all the options, the least likely, right? Option 3. You have the 7th pick in the draft. You could spend that on a wide receiver. You could try and trade back to where you would be probably more comfortable taking a wide receiver. But option 3 is taking a rookie in the 1st round of the 2026 NFL draft to be wide receiver 2. Now, how ideal is it to draft a receiver in the 1st round as high as the Commanders would be drafting in a draft that I don't think has a receiver worthy of the 7th overall pick? But that, again, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. There are a lot of you that believe Carnell Tate is worth the 7th pick in the draft. Mekhi Lemon is worth the 7th pick in the draft. Denzel Boston, whomever your, receiver of choice is, right? Jordan Tyson. Someone's worth the 7th overall pick to some of you, right? Not to me. However, even if they were to trade back, pick up, an additional pick, get into more of a sweet spot for these receivers in this draft, that is an option. But how realistic is it to ask a 1st-round pick, a wide receiver coming into the league at a position that I believe is one of the tougher to come in and be highly productive, because so much is being put on your plate when you're a receiver. You come from college where these offenses are watered down. What you're being asked to do isn't as stressful or complex as it is at the NFL level. A lot of these guys look over to the sidelines. They've got cards. This is how they get the play call. You come here, you got to learn an entire language. They may ask you to play multiple positions. So you may have just been an X in college. They may have you come here, learn the X, the Z, and have you, learning a little bit of the slot. They, there's motions, there's shifts, there's all kinds of things that you might not have been exposed to in college. There's a lot, right? The preciseness of the offense. You're running a deep dig. This is how we want you to run this dig. Don't drift on this dig. You might have been able to get away with that in college. If it's 12 back to 10, it needs to precisely be 12 back to 10. There's so much that goes into being a receiver. You want to ask a rookie to come in here and be relied upon to be the number 2 wide receiver opposite of Terry McLaurin. We've done something similar to that here in Washington before. I get it. It wasn't as high of a pick being invested to ask a guy to come in here and produce. But remember, Antonio Gandy Golden, the Gandy man. Remember us asking him in his rookie season of 2020 to come in here and be the number 2? Opposite of, who was it? Paul Richardson at the time, I think, was our number 1. How nasty was that we were asking Paul Richardson to be our number 1 wide receiver? If I'm not mistaken, that's what it was in 20. That was Ronald Rivera and company's first year here. And they took Antonio Gandy Golden and no. Let me rewind. Terry was the number 1 receiver when they got here. And I think they didn't go get when was P. Rich here? I think P. Rich was here, but I think he got injured. And then you had to ask Antonio Gandy Golden to step up. He wasn't ready to do it. And so it became a mess. Because I believe Paul Richardson was here with Alex Smith when Alex Smith was here, which is what, 20, it was that 2020 year. It was that first year Alex Smith came. So yeah, P. Rich was number 2 receiver with Terry, but he got hurt. Then Antonio Gandy Golden was thrown into the mix. He clearly wasn't ready, and it hurt the offense. And that's what prompted them to go get Curtis Samuel the next year. That didn't work out because he got hurt too, right? And we kept looking for Antonio Gandy Golden to give us something, and he couldn't do it. So it's hard to ask a young receiver to come into this league. Not everybody comes in and is Odell Beckham Jr. in their rookie season. Not everybody comes in and is Brian Thomas Jr. Marvin Harrison Jr. struggled last year. He was a top 5 pick in the draft last season. He struggled mightily with confidence, with, chemistry with his quarterback. It was not easy for him last season. That is the norm at the receiver position, right? Look around at all the first-round guys that went last year who were super talented. All right, Rome Odunze struggled last year. He was solid, but not for where he was drafted, right? Again, I think he's going to be just fine in this league as Rome Odunze. Same with Marvin Harrison Jr., right? A lot, but these guys struggle because young receivers generally struggle. When they don't, that is an outlier. That is unique when a young receiver comes in and hits the ground running. We saw Emeka Egbuka come in here and have a ridiculous start to his season last year, in his career for that matter. Then what happened to him? He fell off of a cliff because the NFL is tough. It is tough. His production was like this, and then it went straight down, right? And whether injuries were a part of that or just the grueling nature of the NFL, whatever the case may be, do you really want to ask a first-round pick to come in here and put that kind? And again, if you're a first-round pick, that's the kind of weight that you get burdened with. That's the weight that is placed upon your shoulders when you are a first-round pick. It comes with the territory, whether you like it or not. We've seen guys crumble under that pressure. Emmanuel Forbes Jr., great example, crumbled under the weight of being a number 1 pick, a first-round pick rather, and wasn't able to produce. Hell, we watched Quan Martin struggle with being a second-round pick, and the weight of that really was too heavy for his shoulders. His first preseason game, he was crucified. Man scurried off of social media. It's tough. So asking a first-round pick receiver who may or not be ready, may or may not be ready to step into that role. That's a tough ask if you ask me. But that's an option. To me, that's the third most likely of these three scenarios, is that they draft a receiver. I think our general manager, Adam Peters, if he can't trade back, if he trades back, I think receiver is the pick. If he can't trade back, if he wants to trade back, obviously, but if he wants to stay there he's going to do the responsible thing, I believe, which is take a defensive player or Jeremiah Love. One of the two. He's going to do the responsible thing. Taking a receiver at 7 feels irresponsible. And the reason that they've done everything that they've done, and he even said this at the league meetings in Phoenix. We didn't really have a conversation about what was said by Adam Peters because I left before we could have that dialogue. But one of the things he said is they've put themselves in a position where they don't have to do anything, which is what I've been saying this entire time. You could see what they were doing. You could see how they were handling this entire offseason. And their approach was, we need to go in to the first round of this draft, specifically 7th overall, with the freedom to do whatever we like. You can do whatever you like. Yeah. You need to be able to go in and do whatever you like. And that last move that they just made of signing Ahkello Witherspoon is like the cherry on top, because that was the one position where we went, shit's a little bit bleak, right? Shit's a little bit spooky at the cornerback position. We can get by at center, right? We got enough stuff at wide receiver, and there's still other options available that if you don't do something in the draft at 7, you'll still be fine, because there's still guys out there, which we're going to talk about here in a second. There's still options available to you. You can trade for Brian Thomas Jr. You can sign a veteran. You can wait on Brandon Aiyuk. There's still options available for the Commanders at receiver. There's no options at cornerback. You had to sign a veteran, or else you were going to have to draft a guy. And I still think they're going to draft a young corner. I've already told you, one of my guarantees is if they don't move at 7 or 71, both picks to me are tradable, by the way. I think 71 more tradable than 7. I've already told you that, though. If they stand pat at 7 and 71, I think they're still going to take a corner in one of those two picks. 71 feels the more likely of the two. But getting Ahkello Witherspoon puts you in a position where you don't have to do anything at corner, knee-jerk reaction-wise, at 7. Same thing can be said for edge rusher, linebacker. All of the moves that they've made in free agency put them in a position to not have to do anything that they don't want to do. The only position that you haven't actually done something at is wide receiver, right? But you've done enough. You've done enough. Adding De'Ami Brown, adding Van Jefferson, you've done enough to put yourself in a position where if you don't do anything in the draft, you're good. So for me, the responsible thing at 7, if you're going to stick and pick, is to take one of these defenders, one of these Ohio State defenders to be more specific, or you're taking Jeremiah Love if you're going offense. That's the responsible thing to do. And we're going to have a conversation about the cornerback position, because I'm not as high on Delane anymore. I've watched him now. I'm not as high as some of you are. I'm not telling you he's not good. I've got reservations about spending the 7th overall pick on him, though. I'll be honest with you. So I'll just say this. In the 4th and final option, just to wrap up my thought, they're not spending. Adam Peters is going to do the responsible thing and pick either a defender or Jeremiah Love at 7, should the Commanders stay at that pick, which means you're not getting a receiver early in the draft. And if you're not drafting a receiver at 7 or trading back to 10, 11, 12, somewhere in that neighborhood and taking a receiver, you can't ask a 3rd-round receiver. We've already done this before. You can't ask a 3rd-round receiver to come in here and be ready to be a number 2 wide receiver. You can't do that. You shouldn't do that. That's irresponsible on your part if you're doing that. Okay. So I don't think the rookie option is going to happen. To me, that's the third most likely option. And then the fourth thing that the Commanders can do at the receiver position to handle this number 2 dilemma that we have right now, our wide receiver 2 dilemma, is to sign a veteran, right? There's some of you who are still team Deebo Samuel, bringing him back. I think that ship has sailed. I don't see him coming back. I would prefer us to not bring him back. I've already stated my case on where I am on Deebo Samuel, but he is still out there, right? And he feels like a guy that will be signed post-draft, probably closer to the start of training camp, right? If I'm Deebo, I don't even want you to sign me, prior to training camp, because I don't want to be in attendance for these OTAs. I'd rather just be with my family, train and work out on my own, keep myself in great shape on my own time. I don't want to have to be required to show up for these, OTAs and these mandatory minis as we get later into the process in, May and June. I'm good. I'll see y'all in July when training camp starts. Jauan Jennings is the one. Now, I know you guys have seen the articles on Jauan Jennings and how the entire league is spoken. And I told y'all this when we saw him not get a deal within the first 2 days of the tampering period and then the first day of the actual new league year. I said he is overpriced his market, right? He is outpriced himself, and teams are like, bro, we're not paying a 5. We're not paying a 5. He was never worth $20 million a year. And I'm hearing that he wants north of 20 million, which is insane because you're not worth that. But he's sticking to his guns. Eventually, he will come to his senses. And as you get, he doesn't have to do anything right now, because all it takes is one injury to a team, having, a receiver that had high aspirations this year, and boom, he's in the mix, and a team may feel obligated to pay the 5. But right now, it feels like he's going to have to realize where he is and what his situation is. And I think he messed himself up, because had he been like, he's not young, right? Jauan Jennings is like 28, probably about to turn 29. He's somewhere in that neighborhood. He's not a young guy. If you wanted a long-term deal, this was your last real opportunity, I believe, to get a long-term deal. Now you've put yourself in a 1-year prove-it deal, which you're past that point of your career looking for a 1-year prove-it deal. You just proved it last year. You were supposed to take this 3-year, $45 million deal from someone and with 27 of it guaranteed and feel good about that. You just messed up, because now you're going to have to take this 1 year, $12 million, with incentives that could get up to 18, this 1 year, 15, and that's at best 1 year, 15 with incentives that could get to 20. That's at best. I think that's still on the high side for him, because he's nothing more than a possession receiver with great red zone ability. But by no means does he do enough offensively to warrant a deal that's going to pay him anywhere close to $20 million a year. So I think he may have messed himself up, but that is still an option that exists for the Commanders should this Aiyuk situation fall through, or you don't want to draft a receiver, which I don't think you should be looking to do at 7. And you're not going to trade for Brian Thomas Jr. One, I don't think Jacksonville, and I've heard all the rumors that Jacksonville is actively shopping him. And look, all it takes is one team on draft day to call Jacksonville and offer their first-round pick, and Brian Thomas Jr. is as good as gone. That's all it will take. We shouldn't be offering our 7th overall pick, albeit a big year for Jaden Daniels in year 3, and you want to surround him with as much talent at the receiver position, in the skill positions, running back, wide receiver, tight end. You want to protect him up front on the offensive line. As much as you want to surround this man with as much talent as possible, I feel like there's no way you're trading the 7th overall pick, because that's cheap labor. Use the phrase cheap very loosely here, but it's cheap labor. You have a guy under contract for anywhere between 4 to 5 years before you have to make a decision on paying him long-term money. Again, Brian Thomas Jr., not expensive. The next 2 years, his cap number, very affordable. Very affordable. But you're going to have to make a decision on that 5th-year option after this season. And that 5th year is very expensive. And then you're going to have to give him a new deal, probably after 2 years. Whereas if you draft a guy Won't have to pay him for another 4 years. So highly unlikely. If I were to rank these scenarios of what wide receiver 2 is going to look like in terms of a resolution, Aiyuk is 1. 2 would be going and getting a veteran like Jauan Jennings, which I don't think many of us really want to see them do, but that's an option, and it's the most likely, I believe, after Brandon Aiyuk landing here. And you could combo 2 of these, right? You could get Brandon Aiyuk and still draft a receiver. It just wouldn't be a first-round receiver. At that point, you could draft a third-round receiver, which they may be looking to do anyway. You could get Aiyuk and still go out and sign another veteran. Highly unlikely that you do that. I think it's one or the other there. The only other pairing I see is you could get a veteran or Aiyuk. Like, that's the main course, and then you could maybe throw on a side, right? The side would be the draft if you do that. The main course options are the 4 that I've given you, right? They're all main course options, but the wide receiver in the draft becomes more of a side dish if it's paired with Aiyuk or a veteran like a Jauan Jennings. So Aiyuk is 1. A guy like Jennings in free agency is still an option. In phase 3 of free agency is 2. The draft, just going and getting a receiver at 7 or trading back to a sweet spot like 11 and then taking a receiver is option 3. And then trading for Brian Thomas Jr. is option 4. I want to talk to you about this Aiyuk situation because I feel like we've been lied to throughout this process. And I think we're getting to a point now where we got to be real with ourselves about what this is actually going to look like. There's a real chance that we don't get Brandon Aiyuk at all this season, at all. And I'm going to explain to you how that could actually come to fruition. But let's go through some of the events that have transpired over this last week since I was gone. There was a new ESPN article written today that I thought was very, very, informative. That's the word I'm looking for. It's very informative. And I want to share some of those excerpts that I've pulled with you because I think it kind of speaks to what I'm talking about, which is, hey, this shit might not happen, right? So let's start with 49ers owner Jed York. So, he had some things to say. And he spoke just like our owner spoke at the league meetings in Phoenix. Just about every team's owner, general manager, etc. spoke. And these are quotes from Jed York. Quote, "I'd love to be able to bring him back into fold," him being Brandon Aiyuk. "And if not, I think he's a valuable asset that other people would want. And we're going to make sure that we get value and we bring talent into our building." Let me stop right there. Lies. We're being lied to. Okay. Now, he's saying everything he's supposed to say because you have no leverage if we know, which is what the 49ers, they've killed any leverage that they've had this entire time because they've basically been telling everyone, John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, since last year, they've been telling everybody, this shit is over. We don't want him back. We're done with him. As soon as we can get rid of this dude, we're going to get rid of him. Well, you've killed his trade value. Because if I know you're going to release him at some point, now I'm circling like a vulture. I'm just waiting. Eventually, that carcass is going to drop somewhere, and then I can pick off the pieces. I'm not going to give you anything for him. I'm just going to wait, right? So, yeah, now, of course, we want to bring him back in the fold. We would love to bring Brandon. No, you wouldn't. Stop lying to me. You've been lying to me this entire time. Kyle Shanahan told me this shit was going to be over. John Lynch told me before the start of the league year or somewhere shortly thereafter, this shit was going to be over with. Kyle Shanahan told me last year, we want this shit to be over as soon as the season's done. We want this shit over with. I've been lied to at every turn. We've been lied to at every turn in this process. And they still lying to us, right? So we would love to bring him back into the fold. No, you wouldn't. Your coach, your general manager are done with this man. They want nothing to do with him. Now, I'm pretty sure if Brandon Aiyuk came back on bended knee, begging to be a part of the franchise and was on the straight and narrow, I'm pretty sure they would have him back. That's not happening at this point. That ship sailed, right? Yeah, you want to get value for him. You're not going to. No one's trading you anything. And I'm going to, reveal why a little bit later on. I think this is Jed York speaking. He says, quote, "I think anything's possible. We want to make sure that we have as talented of a roster as possible. He continues, first and foremost, he needs to get healthy and be able to perform. I think once that happens, he's a really, really good football player. He continues, I don't think it helps your trade leverage, York said. It's just he's a good football player. I think we've paid him more millions of dollars than snaps that he's had, right? I would like to see him play for us. We paid him for a reason. I think he's a really good football player. Let's stop right there. It doesn't help your trade leverage when you say that you're going to, we don't want him anymore. We're going to get rid of him. He's right about that, but it's too late. That ship has sailed as well. Your guys, you should have been in unison here saying, hey, we're going to see what happens with Brandon. We still value Brandon. That's the shit that they should have been saying this entire time. Even though it would have been lies, shit, you've been lying to us this entire time anyway. What's one more lie going to do, right? They could have said that this entire time. Hey, we're going to kind of see how this goes, but we still love Brandon. We still value him as a member of the San Francisco 49ers, and we can't wait for him to come back. That should have been the messaging from John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, even though they would have been lying through their teeth. That should have been the messaging, because that would indicate that, hey, if everything goes, well, he'll be a 49er. But if somebody comes with an offer, we'll be willing to trade him. We're listening, but, we're good with him over here. Everything's all good, right? Continuing on with Jed York. And when you look at the group of people that's here, especially adding guys like Mike Evans, Christian Kirk, who are legit veteran people, that's a room that can absorb someone that has had a tough go with our franchise for the last year or so. Again, when you say something like that, that's sort of disparaging to Brandon Aiyuk, because basically now you're saying I'm a problem in the locker room and you need veteran guys like Christian Kirk and Mike Evans to keep me on the straight and narrow. Like I'm some kind of Antonio Brown problem, or I'm some kind of Terrell Owens cancer in the locker room. But again, that's where they are with this situation, right? That's where they are in this process. He then says, I think we're making sure that the room is what we need it to be. And if BA is a part of that room, we're going to be more talented. I have no problem with that. I hope he's doing well personally. I hope to get to see him soon. That's, I think, sincere. I think that last part is sincere from 49ers owner Jed York. Now, I want to read this to you right quick. This right here is from an article written by Matt Barrows, a beat reporter that covers the San Francisco 49ers for The Athletic. He wrote this article in the New York Times, and this is an excerpt from that article. He says, the 49ers have made it clear that Aiyuk won't be back, and this is what Jed York was basically saying. Like, you don't have any leverage when you do that. So I'm going to basically do the opposite of what they've done to try to clean up what has been said already, which is, hey, we would love to have him back. Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch have said the direct opposite this entire time. We don't want him back. Never mind owner Jed York's comments earlier Monday, but they're not just going to release the receiver anytime soon. Keep that in mind. And it's not a petty move out of bitterness. I would disagree with that. Even though they're going to tell you that they know no one's trading for Brandon Aiyuk. They know this. They know no one's trading for him. And if this were a situation with a player with, let's say George Kittle wanted to move on from the 49ers. And he said, out of respect for George, we're just going to release him and give him a chance so he can, go out in free agency when the money's still there before it all dries up. They would have released George Kittle. Would they have tried to explore trade? Probably, but as soon as they saw that there was no value there, they would have moved on from George Kittle because they have a level of respect for George Kittle. Similar to what we did with center Tyler Biadasz. We could have held on to Tyler Biadasz and tried to extract a 7th-round pick for him. Probably would have been the smart thing to do, to be honest with you. But out of respect for Tyler Biadasz, he's done nothing but been a soldier for us. He's played through injury. We're going to give you a chance to get out there before the money dry up and go get you a deal. So they cut the man loose before the start of the new league year. And what did he do? He secured himself a 3-year, $30 million deal. Good for him. That's not the relationship they got with Brandon Aiyuk. So you can miss me with this isn't about bitterness and a petty move out of bitterness. You a damn lie. This is absolutely about pettiness. He says upset that Aiyuk just stopped showing up for his rehab from his knee injury last season. The logic is simple. If a team is interested in Aiyuk services and spending as much time with him this spring as possible, it can trade the 49ers a draft pick. Why would the 49ers do a team they compete with a favor by handing Aiyuk over for free now? Perhaps they'll release him after the draft if they can't find a suitor by then, but San Francisco can wait much longer if it wants to. The team doesn't owe Aiyuk anything until his option bonus is due September 1st. September 1st is when they have to make a move. Deadlines spur action. I've said this to you over and over and over again. Deadlines spur action. So let's stop right there. I told you we've been lied to throughout this process. And I saw an article, I saw, people starting to tweet out and try to connect dots that, Shanahan spoke to Adam Peters and now he's going to get released sooner rather than later. That's a lie. Don't allow them to pull the wool over your eyes. All right. Here's the thing that I haven't heard anybody talk about, and I could be wrong, and other, publications, other outlets, other people have brought this up, but I haven't heard it. But what if? Because first of all, does anybody even know what Brandon Aiyuk is going to do? I'm assuming he expected to be released by now. He's not going to show up for any of the OTAs. He's not going to show up for any of the mandatory mini camps. They've already taken his guarantees. So he's not obligated to show up for any of that shit. None of it. But what if he does, is he going to show up for training camp? If he's still a member of the San Francisco 49ers, is he going to do the whole thing that he did back in 2024 when he was looking for the deal, show up, but not participate? What is he going to do? Then he becomes a distraction, right? What is he going to do? Is he just not going to show up? Because if he doesn't show up for training camp, you know what the 49ers can do? And this is a petty move. And if they really wanted to stick it to him and everybody else, including us, they could just put him on the, did not report to camp list, which is like a retirement list. And then he's on ice, bro. There's nothing you can do if he doesn't show up. Okay, so say he shows up, but he doesn't practice. Right? He doesn't practice. And I'm assuming because he's under contract, there's a fine that's attached to that. Brandon Aiyuk is not in a position to be eating and accruing fines. He had all of his guarantees taken from him. He's not in a position to be eating fines every day of training camp. So if he doesn't participate and they're fining him, they could then say his behavior is detrimental to the team, and they could put him on another list where he can't play. We've seen teams do that to players before. The Eagles did it to Terrell Owens. We've seen it done, right? Just 2 years ago, the Ravens did it to Deontay Johnson, where they basically put him on a list where he couldn't play anymore. There's a chance that this shit goes sideways because Aiyuk doesn't want to be there. They don't want him. They know he doesn't want to be there. And this thing could go sideways. And what if it does? I haven't heard anybody talk about what if he doesn't show up and they put him on the reserve retirement list or did not report to camp list. What happens then? There's a chance that Brandon Aiyuk isn't released by the 49ers. He's just sitting there rotting this year. You have to, if you're the Commanders, you have to start having these. I'm pretty sure they're having these conversations. Us as a fan base, we have to start having these real conversations. Brandon Aiyuk may not be a part of this team in 2026. We got to stop acting like this is a foregone conclusion. At one point, it felt like it was. Oh, he's going to get released. We just got to wait it out. I did a video about a month ago, feels like, called The Waiting Game. We just got to wait them out, man. It's a game of chicken. Eventually, the 49ers will blink. And when they do, we'll be waiting in the wings to win this staring contest, right? This is a game of chicken, and eventually they'll swerve and we'll win. Oh, really? They got till September 1st. And not that that's a deal breaker. Again, we've been down that road before. Noah Brown 2 years ago, we didn't get him until a week before the season started. That would be what September 1st would essentially be, getting Brandon Aiyuk the week before the season starts. That's not a deal breaker. There's a chance that he's not even available then, that he's been placed on some sort of list for behavior unbecoming to the 49ers football team. There's a chance that he doesn't show up at all in July, right? And they put him on some reserve retirement list. And again, any of this shit is plausible. We don't know what the hell Brandon Aiyuk, nobody knows what he's going to do. I'm pretty sure he's confided in people, i.e. Jaden Daniels and company, of what he's going to do. And he's probably going to show up and play, all of his cards. If he's got an agent, someone advising him, they've probably told me, hey, Brandon, you got to go to camp, bro. And you may even have to participate somewhat. Or if you go, you can't be a distraction. If you're not going to do anything, you just got to be a good soldier. This can't be like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, where you're out there recording shit and being on social media and doing all of this, because now you're under contract. Before, you were looking for a contract. You weren't under contract technically, so they couldn't do anything to you. Now they have all the power. So with that said, as we continue on, this is the ESPN article that was written today. And I want to read a couple of excerpts from this article. It says, for now, the only deadline is September 1st. And I've talked about this. Deadline spur action. So just understand, you're not getting Brandon Aiyuk before September 1st, I believe. I don't think the 49ers are going to have some, change of heart by the time we get to May, right? Which would be post-draft. Oh, no one gave us anything for Aiyuk during the draft. Let's just go ahead and wash our hands clean of this situation. Bullshit. You and I both know that the time where Aiyuk would become most valuable is training camp with an injury to some team's number 1 or number 2 receiver. That's when Aiyuk's value would be at its greatest. So they're not going to trade him because the draft is over and no one gave them a 6th or 7th round pick for him. All of a sudden now they've had this change of heart. Let's just move on from him. Let's wash our hands clean of Brandon Aiyuk. No, that's not what's going to happen. They're going to hold on to him and milk this situation for all it's worth, because that's going to give them the best chance, if any, to get something for Brandon Aiyuk. September 1st. You don't get him for OTAs. You don't get him for training camp. Nothing. September 1st is when they have to move. Deadline spur action. They don't have to do a damn thing until then. When Aiyuk has a $24.935 million option bonus due. That's the thing that's going to drive the 49ers to do something. Right there, right? The 49ers would prefer to move on from Aiyuk long before then, but with that date so far out, it at least gives them flexibility. The Niners don't need the minimal 2026 cap space that releasing Aiyuk would create, so they're incentivized to hold on to him in case a team wants to make a trade offer. We've done the numbers. We've talked about what trading him or releasing him prior to June 1 would do. It doesn't make any sense for the 49ers to do that. Anything that happens with him is going to be post June 1. You can put that designation on him if you're the 49ers. If a team decides they want to trade for him on May the 15th, you can put a post 1 June designation on that trade, and it'll still work out for the 49ers the same way. Just like they could have cut him already, and they could have put a post June 1 designation on him, and they would still get the same benefits of releasing him post June 1, but they're not going to do that, right? While Shanahan's and York's comments seem to hint at different things on the surface, they're both effectively served to let the league know that if they want to acquire Aiyuk, evaluate his health, and get him acclimated during the offseason program, they'd have to do something soon. Quote, "You've got to do what's right for the Niners, and you're not trying to hook up any other team as fast as you possibly can." Close quote, Shanahan said. We talked about that quote he said during the league meetings, basically saying F the Commanders, because he knows he's talking about us. You're not trying to hook up the Commanders, because that's what he's going to do. He's going to make a beeline straight to Washington, right? Team and league sources have indicated that the Washington Commanders are the most likely landing spot for Brandon Aiyuk when he does move on. It's the worst kept secret in the league, if you even want to call it a secret at this point. Commanders general manager Adam Peters was in San Francisco's personnel department when it drafted Aiyuk. More important, Aiyuk is close friends with Washington quarterback Jaden Daniels from their shared time at Arizona State, and Aiyuk has been open about his desire to play with Daniels in the past. If anyone can offer some insight into how Aiyuk is doing, it's probably Daniels, which I'm pretty sure he has told the organization, he's good, he's ready to play, he's been working out, et cetera, et cetera. He's, mentally, he's locked in, yada, 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 which is why I think they've been so, like you heard Adam Peters basically say, I know Brandon Aiyuk, I can vouch for his character, because you got Jaden Daniels basically feeding you information like, he's good, bro, he's good. Shanahan and Peters dined together, and this is what prompted a lot of conversation and scuttlebutt over the last week about, this thing is getting done soon. Shanahan and Peters were kicking it out in Phoenix together. Lies, right? They were kicking it together, but it's not going to fast track this situation any. Business is business, right? Business is business. Shanahan and Peters dined together at the league meetings in Phoenix, but it remains to be seen whether the Commanders would be willing to give up something for Aiyuk rather than wait and see if he's released when they could sign him without giving up compensation. For now, the 49ers seem content to wait and see if any team is willing to give them something for Aiyuk. I think this is the most important portion of this article here, because I think this is the one part that we really don't know a ton about. Like we can talk about all of the different ramifications of when he can get released, why, et cetera, et cetera. But the financial piece is the part I think most of us are illiterate on when it comes to this Brandon Aiyuk situation. So in this article written today, it says, how do the financials play into attempts to trade Aiyuk? For 2026, Aiyuk's base salary is just $1.215 million, a relative bargain, all things considered. That's nothing. That's chump change. All right. Guys like Rachaad White and De'Ami Brown are being paid more base salary this year. Okay. That's chump change. But that option bonus complicates things for any team that would look to acquire him, which is, again, we talked about why no one is really going to trade for Brandon Aiyuk, because while the base is attractive, we just talked about that $24.935 million option bonus that exists, which is the deadline for September 1st that the 49ers have to make a move by. If the bonus gets exercised, the team employing Aiyuk would have to prorate it through 2030, effectively adding potentially significant dead money to their cap if Aiyuk doesn't produce. That bonus also isn't guaranteed after the Niners voided Aiyuk's remaining guarantees last July when he didn't participate in mandatory rehab sessions for his injured right knee. But if that option bonus isn't exercised, an acquiring team would be on the hook for all of it at once. You can't spread it out and prorate it over the next 4 years through 2030, right? Where it would leave some dead cap if Aiyuk isn't productive, but at least it would be spread out over, 4 years, basically. If you decline that option, you got to pay it all in 2026. Again, who's doing that for Brandon Aiyuk, not knowing what he's going to be post-injury? We haven't seen this man play football, let alone run. We haven't seen this man play football, let alone run, since October of 2024. So if that option isn't exercised, a team acquiring would be on the hook for all of it at once, driving his salary for 2026 to more than $26 million when you include the base and that bonus, the $24.9 million plus the $1.2 million. That's over $26 million for a guy that you're not sure is going to produce for you in 2026. No one's doing that. Combine that with the base salaries to inflate that to a $27.274 million in 2027. So that number then jumps another million next year in 2027 to $27 million. It's 26 this year. And then 29.15 in 2028. And it's hard to envision any team wanting to pay Aiyuk that much, especially with the uncertainty surrounding him coming off the injury and how things in San Francisco have played out. Translation, nobody is trading, including us, for Brandon Aiyuk. They know this already. We've talked about this. No one is trading for Brandon Aiyuk, and they know that, which is why I go back to the whole petty conversation. This is absolutely the 49ers being petty. Absolutely. Because no one's going to be that desperate. It'd be one thing if Aiyuk was coming off of a 927-yard receiving season, fully healthy. That'd be different. But he's not. Any team wanting to acquire Aiyuk would almost certainly want to rework his deal, something that could prove challenging since that would give Aiyuk agency in where he ultimately lands. Again, Aiyuk has the say-so there. If there's a trade, he can basically say, I'm not going to restructure my deal. That team would then say, well, I'm not interested in trading for Brandon Aiyuk. So the 49ers are stuck there. Again, he has leverage by basically saying, I'm not reworking any part of my deal. Or he could just say, I don't want to play for that team. Who wants to trade for a guy that doesn't want to play for them? So Aiyuk holds all of the leverage from that standpoint. If he doesn't show up, then the 49ers hold all the cards. So I feel like this situation is one that requires us to be honest with ourselves at this point. I think it requires us to be honest with ourselves. Is Brandon Aiyuk actually going to be a member of the Washington Commanders in 2026? I still think the answer is yes, I do. But I don't know how things are going to go late July when it's time for him to report to camp, because that's the first real time where this is going to become an issue if he's not released by then. The 49ers don't just say, all right, enough of this shit. We don't want the distraction, because we saw what a distraction does to your football team. We saw that firsthand last year, right? I know the 49ers, they've dealt with this before already. We saw how disastrous their 2024 season was, and Aiyuk was at the center of that with his whole offseason shenanigans. Yeah, injuries played a huge part in them not being successful in 2024, but also Brandon Aiyuk's whole contract situation was a massive distraction. They don't want to do that again. We saw what that shit did to our season last year. We don't want that, right? I know they don't want it. They may just say, all right, June 1 has come. We're getting closer to training camp. Let's just go ahead and release them because we don't want to take this shit to camp. We don't want this shit infecting our 2026 operation. They could just continue, and they could just wait to see if Aiyuk's going to show up. If he doesn't, they could put him on the list. We're screwed then. We can't wait on Brandon. I've been saying this the entire time. We can't wait on Brandon Aiyuk, though. We got to do something. So what's it going to be? Are you going to go sign one of these veterans? Feels like signing a veteran coupled with drafting a young guy is very, very plausible. I think if none of those defensive players and Jeremiah Love are available at 7, they would love to trade back. It's not a coincidence that the Commanders have met or plan to meet with just about every one of the top receivers in this draft. And again, they're just doing their due diligence. This isn't a sign that they're going to do something, right? They're going to meet or have already met with Denzel Boston. They've already met with Mekhi Lemon, if I'm not mistaken. We know they're going to meet with Carnell Tate if they haven't already. Not sure if Jordan Tyson is on their list of guys that they want to meet with, but I would be shocked if he's not there. I assume that they're going to be at his personal pro day that's going to happen about a week or two out, prior to the draft, just to kind of make sure that they check all their boxes there, dot all their I's, cross all their T's with him. They've done their homework in case they have a trade back. I think that is when they would be interested in the receiver position. Prior to that, I can't envision them being interested in trading or drafting a receiver at 7. It just, I struggle with that. I don't think that makes a ton of sense on the part of the Commanders to draft a receiver at 7. That feels like desperation. That feels like a reach. That's not the best usage of your pick. Again, we earned the right to draft 7th. You should be looking to maximize that pick. I don't think taking any of these receivers is maximizing the 7th pick in the draft. But again, we'll see, right? We will see. So I think it's time for us to get real. We may not get Brandon Aiyuk. Like, that's a real thing. He may not be a Washington Commander in 2026. I still believe that he will be. I still believe that it will happen a lot later than we would like it to. And similar to Noah Brown back in 2024, you're not going to be able to rely on Brandon Aiyuk for the first week or two of the season. He's going to have to get acclimated. He's going to have to get adjusted to what, and they can spoon feed him. Hey, we're going to give you these 15 plays that you're going to be in for, when he first gets here. This is what we're going to ask you to do until he gets, enough time on task to be able to be a functional part of this offense full time. But this feels like an ongoing process that if you're the Commanders, you have to have insurance baked into your plan for 2026. Life without Aiyuk is a real thing. And whether that's drafting a receiver, that's signing a Juwan Jennings, or even bringing back a Deebo Samuel, I think all of these options have to be still on the table. I don't see them trading for Brian Thomas Jr. because, again, I think that would require a first-round pick. And I just don't see the Commanders being in a space where they're looking to give away the pick that they earned last year by being one of the worst teams in football, giving that to Jacksonville and letting them reap the benefits of it so that we can get Brian Thomas Jr. I just don't see them doing that. So let's go and get a word from our sponsor. And I want to give a big shout out to the sponsor of this stream, PrizePicks. So PrizePicks is America's #1 sports picks app. This is an app that I've been playing around with the last 2 days to really get comfortable with it. I've enjoyed myself thoroughly with this app, and now you can too. All right. New users can use $5, play with $5 and get $50 instantly in lineup. So this app is pretty simple to use. I love the feature that they have, and I'm going to give you my 2 of my picks. So since I'm doing 3 videos today, I'm going to give you each part of my 6-pick power play today. So I've taken my favorite game of the day in the NBA, which is Boston and the Hornets. And we're getting close to playoff basketball. PrizePicks is going to be so clutch as we get closer and closer to playoff ball. It's my favorite of all of the leagues playoff-wise. The NBA is the best. And the Boston Celtics have pretty much locked up the #2 seed. But Charlotte, this could be a preview of a first-round matchup because Charlotte right now is the 8th seed in the East, but they are in a 3-way tie with 2 other teams in the East. So they could get as high as 5 if they went out and Atlanta loses out, and Atlanta lost last night. They get all the way up to 5. But the likelihood is they're going to finish either 6th, 7th, or 8th. If they finish where they are right now and they win their first play-in game in the tournament, they would be the 7th seed. That would get them Boston in the first round. So this could potentially be a preview. They played Boston last week and they mauled the Celtics. Now, that was without Jason Tatum, but this is a team, they're one of the most exciting teams to watch in the league because they're going to shoot the ball a bunch. So with that said, I'm going to give you 2 of my picks here. As you can see down here in the corner, right here, right there. I've got my 2 picks of 6 from my power picks. I've got Brandon Miller for more than 2.5 3-pointers made in the game. So you see that little green icon, all right, right here? That's a goblin. And the goblins are green, which means these are a little bit easier to hit, right? It's more obtainable if you were to go more on that, right? The one down here at the bottom is a demon, right? These are a little bit tougher, but they offer higher payouts, right? If you're able to hit on those. Jaylen Brown has been a man possessed this season. I'm going to take him for more on the points at 29.5. So I expect him to have a 30.9. I think the Celtics are going to come out to make a statement after what happened to them last week without Jason Tatum. They got run out of their own building. I think that Brown is going to play a huge part in this game. Tatum will as well, having not played the last time. And they want to limit this Hornets team that's playing with just unbridled confidence right now. They've won 5 straight games. I think they've probably won like 12 out of their last 14. They've been one of the hottest teams in the NBA. And Brandon Miller, the trio of Brandon Miller, Con Knuppel, and LaMelo Ball, you know they're going to shoot the ball. They're going to shoot a bunch of threes. The question is, are they going to hit them that night? Brandon Miller had an off game last game against the Timberwolves. I expect him to bounce back. Give me 3 threes or more in this game for Brandon Miller. That's on the safe side. That's why you see the Green Goblin. Jaylen Brown scoring 30 points, a little bit tougher. That's why you see the demon there. So it's really simple how to use this PrizePicks app. Go ahead, download the app. Use the promo code HMA to play $5 to get $50 instantly in lineups. Link is in the description of this video. Looking forward to hearing how PrizePicks has given you an opportunity to win some really good money. All right, so let's get to the comment section and see what you guys have to say before we part ways. Again, you're going to see my face a ton today. I'm back. So Derek B, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, Derek B, writes, welcome back. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Don't have wide receiver 2 or 3. We have 6 wide receiver 5s. You're not wrong. I would say we have 4 wide receiver 4s, 2 3s, like in a possible. So I guess you would call them in a possible 2 and a possibles that could be possibly 3s. De'Ami Brown and Treylon Burks could potentially be 3s. Potentially. That's on the high side, right? If they're producing at a high level. If we get playoff documentary De'Ami, that's a wide receiver 3 in this league. That's wide receiver 3, right? If we get Treylon Burks, who was making one-hand grabs and kind of being productive at the end of the season, that's a wide receiver 3. But you're not wrong. Like, most of these guys resemble wide receiver 4 or 5. You're not wrong. It's Terry and, the others, right? Terry and the Jets. Doom. It's like, it's just Terry and a bunch of dudes. So this is why you have to do something at the receiver position. And relying on Brandon Aiyuk isn't the smartest thing to do. Because there's so much uncertainty, so much unknown with his situation. I think you would be doing yourself a disservice if you did not explore all options that don't involve Brandon Aiyuk, because again, you could be waiting on a situation that doesn't end up falling in your favor if you are the Commanders. You're not wrong though. It does feel like we have about 5 wide receiver 6s, so, or 6 wide receiver 5s. So video channel, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, Lou, video channel, once again, bring me Jawan Jennings for wide receiver 2. That is a very realistic possibility that he is here as the wide receiver 2. I wouldn't be opposed to it. I don't love it of all the options. And again, this team has tried to explore the veteran route. They wanted and was aggressively going after Alec Pierce. They clearly were interested in all in on Romeo Doubs. They clearly made an effort to go and handle this wide receiver 2 dilemma, and they just couldn't. They tried to pay guys that they thought were worth the money. They just couldn't, right? Get it done. So it's not like they're not interested. I think they're interested in Jauan Jennings, but not at the price tag. Not at the price tag. And again, and we know who our general manager is. He is not compromising for Jauan Jennings. Either Jennings is going to come down to his number, or Jauan Jennings won't be a Washington Commander. It's very simple. It's not hard, right? But I'm open to Jauan Jennings. At this point, beggars can't be choosers. I'm open to Jauan Jennings being the number 2 receiver here. Kevin the PRF, thank you for being a member for 47 months. Salute. Who writes, speaking my language, Lou, draft, #draft responsibly. I just know you're not a big fan of receivers being the focal point of an offense and how often teams actually win with number 1 wide receivers. We differ on that, right? We differ on the importance of a number 1 wide receiver, but I do think in this particular draft, if this was last year's draft, I wouldn't feel the way that I feel about the number 7 pick and it being spent on a wide receiver. In this year's draft, I just don't think any of these receivers are worth the 7th overall pick. Jordan Tyson, I think, would be the one guy. And again, with his injury history, I am not interested in getting in bed or having this team get in bed with any wide receiver, any player for that matter, with an extensive injury history, the like of Jordan Tyson. So I don't think any receiver is worthy of the 7th pick. I think if you're being responsible, if you're picking responsibly, you're going to spend that 7th overall pick on a defender, more than likely one of those Ohio State defenders, or Jeremiah Love if you're going to spend it on an offensive player. If none of those players are there to your liking, that's when you try and maneuver and trade back. If you can't and you get stuck, then you have to make a calculated decision on what is the best usage of that pick. It still probably feels like a defender. You just got to figure out which one, whether that's a Ruben Bain. Again, I'm not as big on Mansour Delane, but if that's Delane, knock yourself out. But I can't see them spending that pick unless they've got a gun to their head on. And if they did, I think it would be Carnell Tate. I think it would be Carnell Tate at 7, which I think you can't spend the number 7 pick on a number 2 wide receiver. You can't do that, guys. Like, again, could he be a Reggie Wayne where he's a number 2 until he has to be a number 1 and then he turns into a damn good number 1? Sure. Absolutely. That could happen. But the likelihood is that's not what's going to happen. So anyway, I digress. Colin Talks Sports. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Colin Talks Sports writes, Lou, Colin, good to have you back. Hope you enjoyed your vacation. I most certainly did. I got sunburn. I've got stories to tell. I wish I had my podcast up and running right now because I have stories to tell about the trip, but I won't bore you with those details right now, if at all. This Aiyuk situation has me feeling like that song, Wake Me Up When It's All Over. Yeah, it does, doesn't it? I mean, we're at the point now where everything is exhausting. Draft talk is exhausting. This Aiyuk situation has become exhausting. Mock drafts have become exhausting. We're just at that stage of the offseason now where you're just like, all right, bro, can we just fast forward to the draft, the night of the draft, where the real excitement is? And then after that, can you fast forward me all the way to training camp? Yeah, I think that's where we kind of are. The Aiyuk situation, it's so intriguing because this is unlike any situation that we've seen. Like, this is so unique in nature. Like, we've seen disgruntled players. We've seen situations turn sour. We've seen standoffs between organizations and players, but we've never seen a standoff this long. Like, they took his guarantee. Do you know how rare it is for a team to take a player's guarantees from him? Like, they took his guarantees from him. He hasn't shown up. They haven't seen him in ages. Like, and now they're holding him hostage this is a unique situation. We don't know what's going to happen if he's still on the roster in July. Is this man even going to show up for training camp? And to Derek B's point, when you go through all of this and you're not getting in the proper work, you're not working out with the team, and it's so easy to have some sort of soft tissue injury. We see it all the time. This is definitely a roll of the dice, for sure. And it's definitely exhausting. Club 100 TV, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, Louie, over this Aiyuk-ish, LOL, we need to move on. It's hard to move on, and I get it. I want to move on too. I haven't been talking about the Aiyuk stuff as much because I'm sick of it just like you are. But it's hard to move on because it impacts our roster so significantly. As Derek B just said, we don't have a wide receiver 2 or a 3. We have possible 3s, but those guys are more like 4s, and everybody else is a wide receiver 5. We got nothing at receiver right now. This is a dangerous game we're playing, and Aiyuk not being on the roster and not being released impacts us indirectly, which is why we have to keep talking about this. We don't have anything that even closely resembles a wide receiver 2. Now, you have options. Again, you can go back and get Deebo Samuel and bring him back. You can go out and sign Jawan Jennings. You can draft a receiver in the draft. And all of these options are still available to the Commanders, so they're not in dire straits. But wouldn't you much rather have Aiyuk already on the roster, and that would give you the freedom to do whatever it is you like? That's where they would like to be. That is not where they are. And so you have to move forward if you're the Commanders as if Brandon Aiyuk isn't going to be a member of this football team. Until he is released and you have the option to sign him, you have to assume he's not going to be here and conduct business as such. That's why we have to keep talking about it. We don't have a number 2 receiver. This is Jaden Daniels' most important season of his career. And we don't have a number 2 receiver for him right now. That is a problem. So, and again, if you draft a receiver at 7 or you trade back and you draft, you're still asking a rookie to come in here and produce like a 3, 4, 5-year veteran. That's still a tough ask. It just is, man. And the only one of those guys that I trust to come in here year 1 and produce at a high clip is Mekhi Lemon. I've already told you that. All these other guys, I think they could produce. I just don't think it's going to be at the level of a Mekhi Lemon. Carnell Tate can come in here and produce year 1. Jordan Tyson, if he stays healthy, can produce year 1. Omar Cooper could produce year 1. You know, there's a bunch of receivers that I think could come in here and produce year 1. Have enough college football experience, played enough games, have enough sense of what it feels like to be in a pro-style offense, can come in here and produce right away. And then there are some guys where I don't trust them. Have immense talent, you know, all the measurables, height, weight, speed, specimens, but I don't trust them to come in here year 1 and have the type of production that we would have to have out of a number 2. And that's, you don't want to put that kind of pressure on a receiver in his rookie season. Because that's what you find yourself doing if you do that is you're gonna put a receiver in a position to where if he doesn't produce at a high level, you're gonna have fans throwing around the B word right out of the gate. It's the same thing we just did to Ben Sinnott. If Ben Sinnott were a 5th round pick, we wouldn't even be talking about Ben Sinnott going into year 3. Who gives a shit? He's a 5th round pick. Ben Sinnott was a 2nd round pick. So people are losing their shit over Ben Sinnott being a 2nd round pick because what has he done? Now, multiply that times number 7 overall. And again, I would assume the 7th overall pick would produce way more than Ben Sinnott, obviously, who has done absolutely nothing to this point. But again, the pressure is immense. And you're not looking for De'Ami Brown-esque numbers from your number 7 or number 10 or 11 overall pick. It's not okay for that guy to have 37 catches for 487 yards, which it should be if he's the 3rd option. That's great numbers. You'd be ecstatic. if you draft a guy in the 3rd round because you have Brandon Aiyuk as your number 2, and he comes in here and gives you 37 catches for 487 yards and 4 scores, hell yeah, you take that. Not if he's the number 2 receiver, you can't. Right now, your number 2 wide receiver is Convo, your tight end. You're playing a very dangerous game. So while you're at the point where you want to get over the Aiyuk situation, you want to be done with it, we all do. This is the reason we keep harping on it, because we got to do something. We got to do something. Derek B, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Aiyuk, he writes, Brandon Aiyuk soft tissue injury day 1 of camp media scrum. I'm not putting that on him. I'm not putting that on him, but I absolutely get where you're coming from. I absolutely get it. We see it every year. Guy misses all of camp. Guy misses all of the offseason, training activities, and boom, injury. We dealt with that with Terry last year. We're scarred, right? We got scar tissue from last year. So, yeah, it's not an ideal situation. Absolutely not. I'm not putting that on him, though. I'm not going to put that on him. The Commandalorian, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Commandalorian writes, nah, Lou, what happened to Sleeper? LOL, good day. No. Now it's PrizePicks. Now it's PrizePicks. We moving on, man, to bigger and better things. We moving on, man. We moving on. Wrath of God, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Wrath of God, my guy, writes, Lou, sup, pimp? What's going on with you, Wrath of God? Good to see you back. I appreciate that. I appreciate it. Good to be back. I struggle with this pick because I want a blue chip defensive guy, but we need a wide receiver. We have to trade back. Then we end up with a few good guys instead of one badass. That is the dilemma, right? And that is the thing that I do not want to do. I don't want 3 really good players in exchange for one badass, right? I want the one badass. We got one badass on offense, really 2 if you count Terry. I hope Convo makes 3. Well, we got 3 badasses on offense right now that we can vouch for, that we've seen with our own eyes. Jaden Daniels, Terry McLaurin, and Laramie Tunsil, right? So we got 3 badasses on offense. We hope Convo makes 4, and you would love to see somebody else step up and make it 5 or 6 on offense. On defense, we got nada. We don't have a single badass. Yeah, we don't have a single guy that we say, okay, that dude is an absolute difference maker and a game changer every time he steps on the field. At least not for the Commanders. We haven't seen it in the Commanders uniform. So wouldn't you like to add a guy that has the potential to be that on the defensive side, or add Jeremiah Love, which would give us another one on offense? Something of that sort, right? Trading back, adding one of these receivers is not the worst thing in the world. It would absolutely fill a need for this team. You could then potentially have the replacement for Terry McLaurin down the line in, say, 2 years, where, we can start having that Terry's getting older, up there in age, and maybe the production isn't what it is. I've already told you, I expect Terry McLaurin and his production to continue like on a plane, like either this continuing to go up, or it just kind of flattens out, but it's not going to dip. Like, again, I think he's going to age extremely well at the position, play for many, many more years, I believe. So I'm not too concerned with Terry and his production as long as he's healthy. But, if you're of the mindset that we got to be looking to replace Terry as a number 1, because even if Terry's performing at a high level still, it may be where you want something more. You want something better out of that position, and Terry could be your number 2, right? You could be drafting that guy at 10 or 11 if you were to trade back. And that's something that we need. But again, Jordan Tyson, to me, of the guys that are available, he's the only guy that strikes me as a potential number 1. Again, Makai Lemon could be that. but it would be in Amon-Ra St. Brown form. And I don't know about you. Of all of the number one receivers in the league and the guys that produce at a high level, Amon-Ra St. Brown is a monster. He's such a good football player. He scares me the least. Like, he's really good. He's high. Like, I'm more scared of Jameson Williams on that Lions team than I am Amon-Ra St. Brown. Because at any moment, Jameson Williams, who killed us in the playoff game, who almost single-handedly kept the Lions in the playoff game. Like, Amon-Ra St. Brown had the most receiving yards. We didn't feel it, though. Jameson Williams was the guy that we felt in that game, right? He helped us a lot in that game, too. But that reverse, like, oh, my God. Talk about momentum changer, right? I don't want Makai Lemon would be a great addition to this team, but it doesn't feel like what a number 1, number 7 overall is supposed to feel like. So anyway, that's the struggle. If you move back, there are some really good football players. And again, there's no guarantee that you're going to get a bunch of good guys. You could trade back, get a really good receiver, and then with that extra pick you pick up, you could be getting an all-pro player with that extra pick in the second round that we don't have right now. That could turn into an all-pro. We don't know, right? You just lessen the likelihood that you're getting a blue-chip player. 7 doesn't guarantee you a blue-chip player. It just gives you a better chance. It's just like the NBA lottery, right? The draft lottery. Sucking and having the worst record in the league doesn't ensure that you're going to get the number 1 pick. It just gives you better odds. That is essentially where we are in the draft. 7th doesn't guarantee you anything. It just gives you better odds. If you move back, you've lessened your odds of getting an elite player. Doesn't mean you won't. You can still find Aaron Donald at 11, like the Rams did. You can still find Patrick Mahomes at 10, like the Chiefs did. You can still find Micah Parsons at 10 or 11, like the Cowboys did. There are plenty of examples. J.J. Watt was the 11th or 12th pick in the draft to the Texans. You can find a guy that's elite in the teens. You can find elite players in the second round, in the third round. It happens every year. Fred Warner was not a first-round pick. Fred Warner was not a second-round pick. You find these guys, it's just you're less likely to find those guys the further you move back. So I am all for whatever they do. I am all for it. I have no choice. I have no choice. I have to be all in on whatever it is they do. I don't have to agree with the move, and I can have my opinion about it. But once they make it, I hated the Emmanuel Forbes move. But once they made it, he's a part of the family now. I've got to be all in on the move. But we all knew that move had a chance to be a disaster and it was going to backfire. Gonzalez was the pick there. So if they decide at 7 that the receiver is the way to go, I'm not going to like it, but I get it. If they decide trading back is the move, but there were players that I loved at 7 available, I'm not going to love it. But I get it because they may go with these guys that you love. They're just not that high on our board, guys. And we can trade back, and the same guy that we were going to draft at 7, we can get at 10 or 11, the same grade. We got the same grade, and we just picked up another pick in the second round that we didn't have. I would get that. I don't have to love it, but I get it. We're going to see what they decide to do. The prevailing thought is they're going to stick and pick at 7, and it's going to be one of these Ohio State defenders. One of them will be available. Reese is going to be gone. It's sounding like Sonny Styles to the Giants at 5 is a real thing. I struggle with that. Feels like the Giants, them signing what's your boy's name from Buffalo and then the Bears? Them signing him in free agency, but then they did release the Stanford linebacker. So I don't know. We keep hearing Sonny Styles' name pop up with the Giants. You know, this is Lion season, so I'm always a little bit leery of all of that stuff. But worst case scenario, Caleb Downs is going to be available at 7. I have a hard time believing he won't be. I mean, the Browns could shock us and take him at 6. I doubt it. I know you've been hearing the Jeremiah Love conversation. We'll have that conversation a little bit later on, but you've been hearing that conversation. I got a lot to say about that too, so we'll talk about that a little bit later on. Club 100 TV. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, give me your prediction at 7 and 71. I think 7 is going to feature, again, it's hard to say, but 7 is going to feature, and I'm going to give you my Commanders mock draft. Probably not this Friday, but next Friday as we get closer to the draft. But I think that 7 is going to feature a defender. I think it's going to be one of these Ohio State defenders. If Sonny Styles is available, I think it's him. If he's not, I think it's Caleb Downs. I would not be shocked if it's Ruben Bain, but I think it's going to be a defender at 7. And then I think it's a corner at 71. Like, if Keontae Scott is there at 71, they're taking Keontae Scott. They're taking Keontae Scott. Someone of that ilk. But I think they like the Georgia corner. And I like him too. Dalen Everett, I like him too. So if he's there at 71, I think someone like that tickles their fancy. But I see them doing something along those lines. I told you I guaranteed a corner within the first 2 picks, assuming they don't trade back from either one of those selections. I'm going to assume that they don't trade back in either scenario. But again, I think 71, if there was a trade back scenario, 71 would be it. I see them trading back from 71 and trading back to 80 or 83 and picking up, an additional 3rd round pick later in the 3rd round, one of those compensatory picks, or a 4th round pick, which they currently don't have. I can see them trying to get back into the 4th round and having a pick to start off day 3. Because that gap, that's what be killing us, is those gaps, right? You got a 1st round pick, you don't have no 2nd round pick. That gap, there's a lot of talent that's going to come off the board between 7 and 71. Damn, that's 64 whole picks. It's a lot of picks, right? Then you go from 71, you don't make another pick until 147. That's 73 picks. That's a massive gap. If you can close that gap by trading back 10, 11 picks in the 3rd round and allow you to then get the 112th pick in the draft so that gap isn't as wide, I think you do that. And that's why I think 71 is more tradable than 7. So it just depends on what's on the board at that point, though. If there's a guy that you love that you can't trade back, you're going to miss out on him. We did a mock draft, a 3-round mock where I refused to trade back. I got options. The Panthers wanted to trade back. The Saints wanted to trade back. And I turned them down because I was afraid of missing out on some of the options that were available. And that could be, we saw him. Remember, we saw the draft day dialogue between Adam Peters and some team on the phone where he said, I think we're going to stay. We're going to play, Steve, right? I think we're going to stick and pick, right? Where somebody wanted him to move back, but the player on the board was too enticing for them to trade back. And that player was Trey Amos. So I think 7 is Ohio State defender or Ruben Bain. And then I think 71 is a corner like Dalen Everett. Q-Dog, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Q-Dog writes, do you still want BA if we have to wait until September? Yes, absolutely I do. I don't mind waiting. You have to move like he's not going to be available at all, at any point. He's not going to be a part of this, right? You got to move like that. Because I don't give a shit about the bet. Like, Van Jefferson doesn't have to be on this. I don't care. Like, we can make space for Brandon Aiyuk. So I'm not pressed about oh, he didn't get time in camp and he wasn't with us all off season to get acclimated. Neither was Noah Brown, and he was highly impactful in 2024. And again, I don't want to, compare those two situations because they were, clearly different. But again, we see this all the time. Guys don't do anything. They don't. Trent Williams didn't participate in camp at all last year. Again, he's Trent Williams. He's a first ballot future Hall of Famer. I get it. Everybody isn't the same, right? Some guys can not do anything all off season, do everything on their own, show up when it's time to play games and produce at the level that Trent Williams did last year, which is what he did with the 49ers, which he may do again this year because he's holding out for, another contract, right? More money. If Brandon Aiyuk is released on August 31st, because they have to do it before September 1st. They can't wait till September 1st. They have to do it before then. So if they release him on August 31st, I would want the Commanders to sign him on September the 1st. So, yes, I am absolutely all in on Brandon Aiyuk the minute he gets released. But we just got to assume that that's not going to happen. All right. Mr. HTTR, been a member for 39 months. Salute. Who writes, welcome to the opposition. PrizePicks is legit. It is. I'm just getting my feet wet with PrizePicks. Shout out to PrizePicks for sponsoring this stream. But I'm seeing why. I've talked to people that were using this app and they absolutely swear by it. This is my first exposure to it, and I'm like, okay, I'm really feeling this. I like this. And I'm still getting acclimated to it, but I can tell right away that I'm going to thoroughly enjoy using this app. And it's going to, some of the features that I've already seen, like their policy on like injuries and things of that nature, top notch, right? Like other apps you use, hey, bro, do get hurt in the first quarter, you straight. If you get hurt at any other point, you on your own, right? Bet dead. I'm not giving you nothing. They reconfigure your lineup and you still straight, right? So there's a lot that I love about this app, and I think you will too. All right, link is in the description. Use the promo code HMA. Play with $5, get you 50 instantly in lineups. All right. Ben Jones, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Ben Jones writes, hey, Lou, I'm in Toronto. I'm going to the Heat game. If you need some good juju on the game for picks, just let me know. That's another big game on the docket, right? Toronto is one of the three teams tied in the East at 6, 7, and 8, right? Toronto, 76ers, or I think it's Toronto, 76ers. It's actually like 4 teams tied, if I'm not mistaken. It's Toronto, 76ers, Charlotte, and then I believe the Orlando Magic now all of a sudden after their win last night over the Pistons, who are the number 1 seed already, so they didn't need the game, has all of those teams tied, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, but or Toronto might be up on those teams by 1 game. But the East is gonna be really interesting. That back end of the East, because Charlotte's dangerous. Charlotte is dangerous. I'm not as concerned about those other teams. Charlotte is dangerous. Nobody wants to play them in the first round. Because if they're hot, if they get hot, they can beat a 1 seed or a 2 seed. They get hot, and you got LaMelo hitting 7 threes. You got Brandon hitting 3 or 4 threes, and then you got Khan hitting 4 or 5 threes. Bro, if a team hits 17, 18 threes in a playoff game, you're probably cooked. You're probably cooked. So they're a dangerous team. The Heat are another, team, and I think they might be in that little mix, that little conglomerate down there. I think they're a little further down though, but Toronto, they're an enigma, man. Don't get me started on Toronto Raptors because I don't have a lot of nice things to say about them. But they can be a dangerous team, but I don't trust them. Anyway, I digress. That was the last super chat. So that is going to do it for me, your man, Louie T, here on this installment of the Command Post Live. You know what it is. Post up, take command. So as fans, we got to start coming to the realization that Brandon Aiyuk might not be a member of the Commanders this year. And you got to start exploring other options. I still believe that Brandon Aiyuk will be released by that September 1st deadline. But again, we don't know how he's going to conduct himself if or when he shows up. If he doesn't show up, they could put him on a list. Didn't report to camp, retirement list. If he does show up and they deem his conduct detrimental to they could put him on another list where he's essentially suspended without pay and you're screwed either way. So again, how is this going to play out? We don't know. So we need a number 2 receiver. That we do know. And you got 4 options. Wait on Aiyuk. Very, very volatile. But your best option. 2, you can trade for Brian Thomas Jr. Highly unlikely because the Jags want your 7th overall pick. You can't have our number 7 overall pick. If they offer it to them, the Jags would be stupid to say no based off of what they've been able to put together at the receiver position and knowing that Travis Hunter is now going to be featured as a receiver. Brian Thomas Jr. is very expendable at this point. Getting the 7th overall pick, something you did not earn. The Jags would be stupid to turn that down. And we would be stupid to trade that to them, to be honest with you. Option 3, draft a receiver in the 1st round. 7th overall, trade back to 10 or 11 and get you one of these receivers and have that guy be your number 2. Again, dangerous game to play in the rookie season of a wide receiver. One of the most difficult positions to come in and have an immediate impact at, to be relying on that guy to come in and produce big numbers. I don't think is fair, but that's how the game goes sometimes. That's another option for the Commanders. And then option 4 is one that I don't think you can sleep on at this point. Get a veteran in here that can be a number 2 option, i.e. Deebo Samuel or a guy like Juwan Jennings. They are still available. They are still out there. To a lesser degree, a Keenan Allen, I'm good, right? I don't think he's gone back to the Chargers, but, I'm more along the lines of thinking Juwan Jennings would be that guy, right? But, we'll see. In any event, that is going to do it for me, your man, Louie T. Until next time, and I'm going to be back here in about an hour, right? It's going to be a busy day. Y'all going to see my face quite a bit. We're going to make up for some lost time. So look forward to seeing y'all in a little bit. But until then, I'm your man, Louie T. Signing off. You guys have a good one. Big shout out to PrizePicks for sponsoring this stream.